Emily was excited. She and her husband were about to launch their brand new business, Anytime Plumbing. She had a new website, a new logo, and a brand new jetter truck, this powerful piece of mobile equipment that could blast its way through any clog. But just as they opened their doors, the governor said everybody's going into lockdown, that everybody was going to be quarantined. Suddenly, nobody wanted service people trampling through their house. Anybody who wasn't in your pod was a potential threat. And not only that, because of the lockdown, there were no networking events to attend, no road races to sponsor, no way to promote her brand new business. But Emily wasn't about to give up. She had invested her life savings in this business. And besides, she had heard that these days, businesses get their customers on the internet, that Google would give her all the leads and all the traffic she could handle. But as she quickly discovered, Google doesn't trust new businesses, and it doesn't trust new websites. In fact, it can take 6 months or more for a new website to get any sort of traction at the search engines. And even in local search, established plumbers with years of experience and dozens of online reviews were pushing her off the first page and into obscurity. And yeah, Google Ads might have helped, but she had spent all of her money on that jetter truck. But she couldn't give up, so she turned to social media, Facebook specifically, and she posted, and she posted, and she posted some more. But nobody cared. Not homeowners, not her friends, not even her family. And Facebook, the algorithm wasn't about to show her post to a bunch of local homeowners. And even if it had, would it have really stopped the scroll to see pictures of clogs and tips about hot water maintenance? I don't think so. And yes, again, she could have used ads, but she didn't have the know-how or the money to make ads work for her. She felt defeated. She couldn't figure out a way to get the attention that she needed to grow her business. Anytime Plumbing's not alone. Maybe you've experienced something similar. You can't get to the first page of Google. Or you post on Facebook, but nobody takes notice. Or the ads that you're running aren't generating enough leads or sales for you to grow your business, for you to get the attention that you need. And you may start to think that none of this is working anymore. And yet, there are companies that are crushing it. We know, we've seen them. So what makes them different? Well, I'll tell you. It's not because they have beautiful websites or they've optimized them for the search engines. It's not because they're posting regularly to social media or that they're running ads that target their ideal customers. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they do. But so are tens of thousands of other businesses that aren't getting the recognition, the attention, and it's not working for them. It's not the marketing. Marketing is rarely a differentiator because the barriers to competition are so low. As soon as you do something awesome in social media, your competitors can see it and just copy you. And if they don't know how, they can watch a 5-minute video on YouTube and suddenly they're up to speed. No. Marketing is rarely a differentiator. It's an amplifier, a multiplier. But if you have nothing of value to share, then your net result is going to be zero. Less than zero, really, because you've wasted all this time and energy and money with nothing to show for it. So what's the difference? Well, it's been my experience that those companies that are making it work for them, either by design or by accident, have identified and named something remarkable about their business. And that's what I want for you. Now I know, remarkable is a big, scary word, right? You may not feel comfortable saying that you're remarkable or your company's remarkable. It might give you that feeling of imposter syndrome, which seems to be a running theme today. But all that remarkable really means is that there's something about you or your company or your services or offerings that's worth remarking upon. And once you can identify and name that, everything's going to start to fall into place. And the reason this works is because the human brain, the reptile part of the human brain, is hardwired to notice things that are different. They notice things that are different. And as soon as they do, they give it that very precious resource of attention. Who here has heard of dopamine? All right, and I'm glad to see many of you are still awake. I know it's the end of the day. Most people think of dopamine this way, that the human brain releases dopamine to make us feel good, that it's a reward. But recent research has actually shown that dopamine just makes us go out and search for a reward. So it's not a reward unto itself. So how does that impact your marketing? Well, if the human brain, if our brain releases dopamine every time it sees something new to go out and seek reward, how does that exploration work? Well, once you clarify your remarkability and put it out there, your customer brain is going to release the dopamine, and then your customers are going to go out and explore. And that exploration might be about watching your video, or clicking on your link, or filling out a contact form at your website. Remarkability leads to dopamine, leads to action. And that's what I want for you today. And as you start to think about what makes you remarkable, there's three things that I want you to keep in mind. The first is, if your customers don't find it remarkable, then it's not. They need to find it remarkable. It's not about you. Because a good differentiator will attract the right type of clients, the right type of customers, while at the same time repelling the wrong type of customers. What do I mean by the wrong type of customers? You know, the ones who beat you up on price, who never appreciate when you go the extra mile, or when their name shows up on your caller ID, you feel sick to your stomach. Has that ever happened to you guys? Yes. Thank you. You know, that gut feeling when your least favorite customer calls. And all of a sudden you have to make that snap-second decision, right? Do I just pick up the phone and deal with them? Or do I let it go to voicemail? Or do I disconnect the phone, move out of state, and assume a new identity? If so, you are not alone. Rich Brooks is not the first name that I've gone by. So again, your customers must agree that it's remarkable. The second thing is it should offer a high barrier to competition. Other people should have to think twice before they go head-to-head with you on this differentiator. And three, it must be easy to communicate. You must be crystal clear in how you communicate your remarkability so that your customer immediately understands it regardless of the platform that you're on.
But Rich, there are 10 other coffee shops in my neighborhood alone. But Rich, I'm competing with 100 other mail order seed companies, and we all get our seeds from the same distributor. But Rich, there are 1,000 other keynote speakers on leadership.
I hear you, three random strangers who I've never met before. Excellent questions all. You may feel that you're going through the same thing, or maybe the odds are even more stacked against you, but I promise you that if you go through this process with me today, you too can uncover your own remarkability. When I sit down with my clients, before we talk about ad budgets or social media platforms or SEO, I take them through this process that I refer to as the remarkability formula. And I'm going to be honest, this is not revolutionary. What I call remarkability has had other names in the past. Unique selling or value proposition, blue ocean strategy, a purple cow. But what I'm trying to do is show you a proven method where you can go step by step to uncover your own remarkability. And that remarkability is 4 different lenses to use on your business that will help you uncover what your differentiator, what your remarkability is all about. And they are find, focus, forge, and frame. Through find, what makes you remarkable already exists. All you need to do is identify and name it. Through focus, you are going to niche down until you are the only company offering a particular service to a particular audience. Through forge, you are going to create something extrinsic to your main offering, but still in keeping with your mission and values. And through frame, you are going to reposition your offering in a new and powerful way that resonates with your ideal customer. Find, focus, forge, and frame. I like to start with find because it's often the easiest approach because it's already there. You just need to find it. There's already a reason why your customers are choosing you. Let me give you an example. When I bought my first house, it was in dire need of a paint job. And I don't know about, no, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Rich, there can't be anything remarkable about house painting. You know, you might have slightly lower prices, or you might have more reviews on Yelp, but those are not really remarkable differentiators. Well, my experience up until that point with house painting is it seems to take forever, that they never show up on time, and when they do, halfway through the project, they leave because they have to go do something else somewhere else. They show up, they spend a week at your house, they park on your lawn, they set up scaffolding, and the whole thing makes me feel like that my house is a work zone for what feels like a month or more. But one guy told me he could do the entire job in 2 days, so we went with him. And the way he did it is that he had 20 guys on his crew. They pull up in 3 or 4 vans. They pour out like it's clowns out of a clown car at a circus, like an Amish barn raising. And they jump out and they throw up ladders against every single wall, and they climb up and they're painting every single board, and they're done by sunset. And I swear, I think they were singing sea shanties the entire time. But I might be misremembering that part. They come back a day or 2 later, they finish the job in the same way. Now, as you can imagine, my neighbors took notice. A swarm of people coming out of cars like an invading army of ants, like a well-tuned NASCAR pit crew, turning my house from before to after in just 2 days. Now, that's remarkable and very hard to replicate, especially in this job market. What makes you remarkable may already exist. It might be a product. We recently took on a client that is an exam prep company. And they were the default exam prep company in their industry for years. In fact, university professors were using their material in their classes. But, as my new client told me, in the past few years, they had started to lose their market share. That a couple of new upstarts with clever names and promises of hacks on how to pass the exam had popped up. Because this company had been known about how challenging, how difficult their test had been, and people had actually complained about it. And because of that, they were thinking that they were going to shift their approach, and they were going to make their exam prep easier and really just focus on getting people passing grades. And I told them I thought that was a bad idea, that they should lean into who they are and promote the fact that they have the most rigorous exam prep course out there. We even gave them a tagline: when you're prepping for a career, not just an exam. Because we knew that that would resonate with their ideal customer, the ones who would go on to become the industry leaders in the future, whose word and testimonials would mean that much more. And I'm glad to say that they went with that and they shored up their business and things are going along really well. Now, if it's not your product, maybe it's your pricing. And I'm not talking about just lowering your pricing a little bit, because that's not remarkable. I'm talking about going to the edges. I know I've heard a lot of people say, who here is old enough to remember when? Well, who here is old enough to remember Columbia Record House? 11 records for a penny. A penny! Not only that, you didn't even have to go to the record store anymore, because they would ship you a catalog every month of all the albums you could buy. That's remarkable. And if you can't be the cheapest, maybe you could be the most expensive. Grey Goose vodka was never going to be a cheap vodka. It is made with soft winter wheat, from a singular region in France. When they hit the market in 1995, they could have gone head-to-head or even undercut the premium vodkas of the day, which were selling for about $17. But instead, when they launched, they announced themselves as a super premium brand, and they charged $30 a bottle. And suddenly, ordering a Grey Goose martini at a restaurant or having a bottle at your home bar showed that you had made it. And just a few years later, Bacardi bought them for $2 billion. Maybe it's your product, maybe it's your pricing, maybe it's your people because they're authentic and they're who they're supposed to be. Maybe it's your delivery system. The point is there may already be something remarkable about your business and you just have to identify and name it. Now, whether you find something remarkable about your business in Find, you should still keep going. Because what you want to do is find something in each lens if you can, and layer them upon themselves until you have created a truly unassailable position in the marketplace. Which brings us to our second lens, which is focus, where you counterintuitively shrink your audience or go after a smaller pain point or whatever it takes, just continue to reduce down until you are the only company offering that particular solution. I met John on a New York City rooftop bar at Blog World, which was a thing years ago. A mutual friend introduced us, and she said we should get to know each other because we were both from Portland, Maine. So I'm making some small talk, and I say, "So John, what do you do?" And John replied, "I just quit my job selling commercial real estate to become a professional podcaster." It was 2012. I didn't even know we had a professional league back then. Still, I congratulated him, all the while wondering, I wonder when he's going to move into his mom's garage. Well, if you know John Lee Dumas and his podcast, The Entrepreneur is on Fire, you may also know that he currently lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion with an oceanfront view in Puerto Rico. In other news, his mom's garage is still available for rent. I know the housing market is tight now, so just let me know if you need an introduction. There are a lot of reasons why John Lee Dumas succeeded, but one of them is because of his incredible ability to focus, to niche down. In his own words, to niche down until it hurts. When John decided to launch his podcast, there were already a lot of business podcasts. They had high-quality audio, they had interesting guests, and they had hosts that asked excellent questions. And John could have decided to have even higher quality video, or even more interesting guests, or ask even more excellent questions. But none of those incremental changes would have really been remarkable. So what did he do? Well, back then, the typical podcast dropped about once a week. But John had always found himself wanting more content, wishing there was more inspirational business content out there. So he decided he was going to launch a 7-day-a-week business podcast. And when he took that idea to his mastermind, which was filled with some of the biggest names in podcasting at the time, they told him he was crazy, that nobody wanted an everyday podcast. Sorry, Brian, wherever you are. But he knew that there was a subset of that audience that was passionate like he was, and he chose to serve that smaller audience. And so after much preparation, he launched his 7-day-a-week business podcast. And at the time, he said, he became the best and the worst and the only everyday business podcast out there. It's fairly impressive. And because of that narrowing down, that niching down, he became the go-to voice in podcasts back then. And journalists who were looking to interview people about this emerging form of social media found him. And through that press, he gained new listeners. And he got more requests for people to come on the show. And he got more sponsorship. And he had more opportunities to co-create with other like-minded business people. All by narrowing his focus and discovering the riches in the niches. This works because we value specialists over generalists. Let me give you an example. In 2017, the average US primary care physician earned a comfortable $247,000 in salary, which sounds great. Until you discover that in the same year, the average specialist earned $399,000, over $150,000 difference. We reward specialists. We reward people and companies who have narrowed their focus to increase their value to a smaller audience or a smaller geography or to solve a more specific pain point. Now, I know what you're saying, and I know what you're feeling. Niching down is scary. We want to be all things to all people. If we're looking to grow our business, the last thing we want to do is give up on opportunities. John risked alienating most podcast listeners of the day, but by narrowing his focus to that particular audience, all that risk led to his reward. There are a lot of different ways you could niche down your own business. Maybe you could serve a single demographic, or shrink your delivery zone, or be open to the public only one day a week. Now, any of those choices could lead to good or bad business outcomes. The goal here is to continue to niche down until you are the only company serving a particular audience. Through reduction comes remarkability. Which brings us to our third lens, which is forge, which is where we're going to create something extrinsic to our business, but is still keeping with our mission and vision and values. Who here has ever overcooked spaghetti? Yeah. How? I mean, literally, the number of minutes you have to cook it is on every single box that was ever created. But we forget to set the timer. Or the phone rings, and we get distracted, and suddenly we are looking at a very mushy bowl of noodles. The pasta company Barilla has come up with a very intriguing solution. They have created a series of Spotify playlists that are timed for perfect cooking of their different pastas. You can queue up mixtape spaghetti for 9 minutes, or boom bap fusilli for slightly more leisurely 11 minutes. Every playlist is perfectly timed for al dente piece. Al dente. You know what? I practiced that word for like half an hour last night, and I think I broke myself. I broke my brain. Al dente pasta. Each playlist has cover art that was designed by an Italian artist. And each playlist includes songs by Italian musicians, which is all keeping in Barilla's belief that cooking is art. The playlists are not required. An Alexa timer works just as well. But by forging, by creating something truly remarkable, they garnered the attention of foodies across the globe. They got tons of press from this, and they even got a new platform on which to market, Spotify. That mixtape spaghetti has over 18,000 followers on Spotify. It's pretty remarkable. I was going to tell a story now about my own conference, Agents of Change, and how it's a great example of Forge, because my company, Flight, puts it on, but you certainly don't need to attend the conference to work with Flight. But the mission of Agents of Change, promoting digital marketing and educating people in digital marketing, is definitely in line with the values of Flight New Media. It's also been very successful for us. It's led to well over $100,000 in revenue for Flight, not from ticket sales, but from new business from people who found out about us through the conference. And it offers a very high barrier to competition. As Jessica and her team will tell you, it is a lot of work to put on a conference, especially as successful as this one. Very few other agencies are going to go head-to-head with her or with me to try and put on a similar conference. So that's a big benefit, is that high barrier of competition. But I want to tell a story instead that came out of Agents of Change. Because one of our long-term sponsors, Machias Savings Bank, came to me and they said, look, Rich, we love the Agents of Change, but we're looking to move out of retail and really build our business banking. We need to get in front of business owners. What can you do? I had become friends with their director of customer engagement, Yuri Nabokov. And Yuri and I sat down, and the reason I'm telling you the story instead of Agents of Change is co-create. Should have mentioned that. We sat down and came up with this idea that we were going to create a brand new brand called Fast Forward Maine that was all about growing your business in Maine. And it was going to be a podcast and in-person workshops. And for 3 years, it worked great because Machias Savings Bank got all the content that they needed to get in front of owners. They put it up on their website. They promoted it through social media. You could walk into a Machias Savings Bank, and there on the screens would be me and Yuri promoting that week's episode. So they really leveraged this content. For me, it was great because I, through the podcast, got to meet a bunch of other business leaders in Maine who I might not have connected with, and that also helped grow my business as well. The podcast was picked up in local press, and it even won a prestigious education award from the New England Financial Marketers Association. Just a great opportunity. And like I mentioned for Agents of Change, it offered a high barrier to competition. It's not easy to create a new brand, to launch a podcast, and to put on workshops around the state. There weren't going to be too many other banks or agencies that were going to compete with us head-to-head on that. Which brings us to our fourth and final lens, which is frame, where you position your offering in a new and interesting way that resonates with your ideal customer. Red Bull is a good example of this. When they first decided to go global, they could have just said we're soda and gone head-to-head with Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and likely they would have been crushed. Instead, they shrank their bottle, they doubled their price, and they promoted the fact that they had an ingredient called taurine, which apparently gives you wings. This was all to get out of the soda category and position themselves as an energy drink. Well, it worked, because in 2020, they owned 43% of the energy drink category and earned over $6 billion in revenue that year. You don't have to be a global company to make this approach work for you, though. In his book, The Introvert's Edge, Matthew Pollard tells a story about one of his clients, a woman by the name of Wendy Huang. Wendy was teaching Mandarin. Somebody else was teaching Mandarin today, I remember them saying. Or you were doing translations. Interpreter. So she was teaching people, kids and adults, Mandarin in California, and business was good. But all of a sudden, a bunch of low-price competitors flooded the market, eroding her market share, her profitability, and threatening her business. When Pollard came into the situation, he noticed that 2 of her clients were business people who were relocating to China. She wasn't just teaching them Mandarin, she was also teaching them about Chinese business ethics, and she was also working with their spouse and their children to help them acclimate to their new environment. As Pollard put it, so you're really teaching people to succeed in China. And with that, they rebranded her as the China Success Coach. Suddenly, she's not competing with people on price, and she's not trying to be everything to everybody. She is the China Success Coach, the person who can help you successfully relocate your business or your position to China. And no longer did she have to market to everyone, market a mile wide and an inch deep. She just had to focus on those business professionals that were being relocated to China. In other words, she was combining frame with focus. And this is an important point. Find, focus, forge, frame, they're just labels. I don't want you to get hung up on whether one element of your remarkability is on one label or another. I just want you to go through the process of all 4 lenses to uncover your own remarkability. And I found when I work with clients on this that there's 3 big outcomes for them. First is they get crystal clear on who their ideal client is, and they start to attract those clients. Secondly, they develop high barriers to competition, kind of securing themselves from anybody else coming into the marketplace. And third, their marketing becomes easier and more effective, which sounds great, doesn't it? So, what about Emily and her brand new plumbing company? I bet you forgot about her, right? Well, as it turned out, while Emily was struggling with the lockdown, a pipe in my house burst. No, she didn't come to fix it. She lived like 8 hours away. But at the time, my girlfriend's daughter was living with us, Julia. And Julia had been taking a plumbing class in school by chance until the schools closed down and went to remote learning. And Julia said, I think I can fix this. I just don't have this special piece of equipment. So she reached out to her teacher, and her teacher was kind enough to lend her the equipment. He dropped it off on our front porch, because, you know, COVID, back then, we didn't know what was going on. And as she starts to get to work, I said out loud, oh, I wish we could FaceTime with him so he could give us any guidance we need. As it turned out, Julia didn't need it. She did a great job. She fixed the leak. But for me, it was an aha moment. I ran upstairs. I got on the phone with Emily, and I said, I want you to start offering virtual service calls. I want Anytime Plumbing to offer free diagnosis through FaceTime or Zoom, help the customer through the process, and only go to the house if absolutely necessary. She loved the idea. So the next day, we put it up on our website, we promoted it through social media, and the very next day after that, as if the gods were smiling on her, she got a call requesting the service. As her husband jumped on the Zoom call to help the homeowner through the process, she recorded everything on her phone. We edited the video, we put it up to her website, we put it up to social media, and we even sent it to some of the local journalists, who ended picking it up as a feel-good story about how small businesses were pivoting during the pandemic. I'm happy to report that Emily's business is doing great now. They have over 100 Google reviews. They're often the #1 result when you do a search for them. And she's currently looking to hire more people to help grow her business. Now, I'm not saying it's all because of my brilliant idea about virtual plumbing visits, which was novel at the time, but that did spark the whole process. It attracted attention. It encouraged engagement on social media, and it landed her that first bit of business. Now, virtual service calls probably won't work for you. They're not going to get the attention of local media, or even social media for that matter. You're going to have to uncover your own remarkability, whether it's found, focused, forged, or framed. But I know you can do it. I know it's in there, and I believe in you. Stay remarkable. Thank you very much.